There's a piece here in Politico today by Mike Allen that starts out, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, who, by the way, is probably one of the more prominent, probably one of the most prominent, most progressive politicians in America. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, using his muscular perch to try to nudge the National Democratic Party to the left. See, I'd say it's to the center. I mean, if 71% of Americans want debt-free college, that's not the left. That's the center. That's a majority. In fact, that's a supermajority. Anyway, New York Mayor Bill de Blasio, using his muscular perch to try to nudge the National Democratic Party to the left. Next week, they have to keep saying nudge because this is just the corporate media narrative. But in any case, next week we'll unveil a 13-point progressive agenda that he hopes will be the left's answer to the contract with America, which helped propel Newt Gingrich in the Republican Revolution of '94. Now, I remember the contract with America, and there were 10 items in it, and 6 of them, when you dug into them, and this was back in the 90s, and the internet was just sort of, well, back then it was CompuServe. I was running a bunch of forums on CompuServe. You had CompuServe or AOL. Those were your choices. And, you know, with a 300 baud modem or a 1200 baud modem, maybe a 1200, maybe 2400 if you could get really fancy. But back then, I remember running forums on CompuServe, these conversations about the contract on America, or with America. I always called it Contract on America that Newt Gingrich laid out. And if you tracked back each of the pieces of legislation that each one of the items in the contract with America pointed to, it would be things like, you know, an item in the contract with America might be something like, you know, strengthen America's middle class. And you point to and it points to a piece of legislation. You check the legislation out. 6 of the 10 items pointed to the same piece of legislation, which was a bill to cut taxes on rich people. Help the job creators, right? I mean, you know, they've been peddling this lie since the 1920s. So anyhow, Bill de Blasio is going to roll out this 13 points. And I'm curious, what should they be? What should they be? And where did my copy? Where is it? I'm looking for Rebooting the American Dream. Oh, it's right here. Okay, and what should our agenda be? Here's what, I wrote this book, Rebooting the American Dream, and I laid out what my agenda would be, or what I think an American agenda would be. This is not me like I'm running for political office, because I'm not. Bernie Sanders read from this book during his 9-hour filibuster on the floor of the Senate, which was a great honor to me. And then he went even a step farther. He signed a cover letter. We took 99 books over to the Senate. Bernie wrote 99 letters to each one of his colleagues, individually, you know, personalized letters, saying, please read this book. So here are my 11 things, and I'm curious what you would add to this or take away from it. Let's brainstorm this together. How do we bring back the American dream? This is from my book, Rebooting the American Dream. Chapter 1 is titled, Bring My Job Home. The first chapter is all about trade, right? How our trade policy used to work. It starts out with George Washington, how it used to work and how it works now and how badly it's been destroyed by Reaganism. Chapter 2, roll back the Reagan tax cuts. I think that's fairly self-explanatory. Chapter 3, stop them from eating my town. This is the Sherman Antitrust Act. Stop the big corporations. Let small family businesses come back and start occupying downtowns and malls and things. Chapter 4, an informed and educated electorate. This is calling for fully funding public education, pre-K and post public schools. In other words, in college, including graduate school. Chapter 5, Medicare Part E, Medicare for everybody. Bernie's been saying this forever. Chapter 6, make members of Congress wear NASCAR patches. In other words, transparency about where their money's coming from. Or actually, the real call for action there was amend the Constitution to reverse what the Supreme Court said in Citizens United. Chapter 7, cool our fever. In other words, let's do something about global warming before we're all dead. Chapter 8, they will steal it. This is about foreign policy. It's a lesson that Dick Gregory taught me, actually, once. We were on a plane flying across the Atlantic on our way to, we were on our way to Germany, and from there we flew down to Kenya and down to Nairobi and then to Entebbe, to Uganda. And he talked about how, if you got something good, you don't have to force it down people's throats with a barrel of a gun. If you got something good, they will steal it. And, so let's support democracy movements around the world. It's Foreign Policy, Chapter 8. Chapter 9, put Lou Dobbs out to pasture. In other words, we need a comprehensive approach to immigration reform that actually works. Reagan certainly did not do that back in 86? I think it was 83? 86 that he did his, And Chapter 11 is titled In the Shadow of the Dragon. And for that chapter, Louise and I traveled to Mondragon in Spain, the workers' cooperative, the multi-billion-dollar workers' cooperative, the largest in the world. And it's basically lays out alternatives to capitalism, cooperatives, worker-owned businesses, these kinds of things that could be, that could enhance the American economy, but don't require an ownership class, a billionaire class, to function. Okay? So those are my suggestions. I don't know what de Blasio is going to say, what Mayor de Blasio is going to say. He's got 13. I just laid out 11. And I'm curious what yours are. If any of the ones that I pointed out you think are super important or shouldn't be there, what should the progressive agenda be this year and next year as we go into the elections? 15 minutes past the hour.